This week, we got 5 forgotten V8 luxury cars that are all great buys right now. All under 20 grand in the real world, ranked by how much you're willing to gamble to own one. And a couple of these cars, you're basically LARPing Kenny Rogers and six-pack. And again, we're not going to do any of that collector card nonsense here. These are all driver's grade cars. So I'm going to know if you comment on the title alone, Turbo. Number 5 is the one barely anyone remembers existing. And number 1 pick is the one I'd throw my own money at and stick in my garage. Welcome to Off Camber. Number 5 on the list is the Mercury Marauder. In 03 and 04, your grandfather's favorite car company put out something that is angry and low-key at the same time. Only 11,052 of these things were ever built, and most of you guys have never knowingly seen one. It actually looks like an unmarked cop car that someone blacked the trim out on, and it's on the list because of its rarity. Want a really, really rare one? Find one that isn't black. They made red, blue, and silver also. The real bonus is the engine it came with. It came with the same 4.6 liter dual overhead cam V8 that they threw in the Mach 1 Mustang. Now, you didn't get the cool intake manifold from the Mach 1, but that's about the only difference. Then, to give it the ability to do a really deep tire roasting burnout, they threw 355s and LSD out of the police interceptor in it, and the aluminum drive shaft. So, that's some pretty cool shit right there. Thing of it is, it looks meaner than it actually is. It's got some sealing to add performance to, and it is a pretty cool car to paint the number 11 on the street with. The golden years for these things is the 04 if we're picking nits, because it's got a slightly stronger transmission with the 4R75W and a higher stall torque converter on it. But really you want to buy the records in the cleaner car. And if you can find a color and you want it, do that. The nightmare situation on them is really the parts availability on the Marauder specific stuff. So do yourself a favor and join a forum and get involved in the community. Sometimes it is the only way to find parts for old cars. What's the first money spent on this car? Well, it's over 20 years old, so go through the suspension, but that's a perfect time for what? Yep, perfect time for more low. Also, look at the bushings. Motor mounts, trans mounts, all of those rubber parts, they're all bound to be pretty dried up by now. And if you get through that and want to start adding speed and power, there's a company called ADTR that has a full bolt-on supercharger kit that works right out of the box. Want to get a little bit more spicy? Grab the blower off a Terminator Mustang, and with the 8.8 rear end in there are loads of gear changes to choose from. You fancy yourself a lone warrior, and you're ready to fight that maintenance schedule? You're going to love what's next. Number 4 on the list is the D2 Audi S8. So this car was actually made desirable by a chase scene in a movie. Arguably, one of the greatest chase scenes in movie history. But if that's why you want to buy this car, it's probably actually cheaper to get yourself a poster. The real reason you should want this car is its split personality. It's a super quiet executive sedan that'll dance when you ask it to. They're also really good to cruise around in, and they look great lowered. There isn't many cars out there that are going to give you this level of luxury with some performance to back it up. It's just a downright good car to be in. But here's the thing. They aren't cheap to own, and this is the first car on the list that I'll say that you're really gambling with the reliability side of things. So, what are the best years to buy? That's going to be the 2003. It's the last year that they were in the US and the best sorted. But service records are going to beat model year every single time because this car was only here from 01 to 03. Europe got it from 96 forward, but we're 01 to 03 in the US because they waited for the facelift. With all the good news out of the way, let's get to the nightmare scenario side of this German Luxembourg. The 4.2 liter 40 valve, it runs a timing belt at the front, so it needs a proper belt service on schedule. But believe it or not, this is actually the manageable version of the Audi V8 and not the drop the engine job from the later 4.2. But it still costs real money to have a shop do it. You can actually save yourself a fortune if you're willing to tackle the job yourself. And just like every other German car out there, the front control arm bushings wear out. But you buy those as control arms and bushings at the same time, and it can at least bolt them on straight out of the box, then take it to get in alignment. Also, make sure to keep an eye on the coolant tank, thermostat, and water pump. Ready for some more good news? The plastic intake manifold flap arm likes to snap, and the aluminum body of the car means that any dents on it, it has to go to a specialist. What's the first money spent on this car? Go for a full timing belt and water pump service if the history is unknown, plus do the control arms. And for mods, I wouldn't really chase power on this thing. It's kind of the opposite of what you want with this car. So swap that intake flap for a metal one, add some air ride for that baller status or coilovers if you don't want to mess with air because you're wrong. Add some wheels to it, some exhaust, maintain it, and enjoy it. This is one of those cars that you take the family out in or your boss out in at work. Wait a second, what? You want to talk fancy American stuff now? Fine, let's go ahead and do that. On to the fancy American stuff. Look, I've seen some of the comments. I can't draw number 3 to save my life, I'm sorry. But anyways, number 3 on the list, Cadillac STS-V. So any of you guys that have been around have probably heard some horror stories about the North Star engine. This is the one that out of nowhere just pops head gaskets and completely destroys the engine. There's pieces everywhere, children crying, water in places water doesn't go, dogs howling. I mean, it's a real disaster. Well, that was actually all for the old 4.6 liter North Star. This one's actually fine. The STS-V actually runs the supercharged 4.4 liter LC3 engine, and it's got a revised block with multi-layer steel gaskets, and from everything I've found, the owners are all saying this is the North Star that actually got fixed. And it's funny because these cars get overlooked for just that reason. This thing has 469 horsepower, it's rear-wheel drive, and it's cheap based off a reputation that it never actually earned. Plus, they look like a bigger first-gen CTS-V, which is pretty cool. I'm all for this thing. It's a supercharged car after all, and that means that you can add more boost, and who doesn't love boost? So what are the nightmares with this car then? Well, it's not the head gasket. The supercharger does start to rattle as it gets a little older. It sounds like a bag of glass marble shaking around, but that's more just an annoyance. However, the stock intercooler and heat exchanger are what my son calls mid at best, so you have to deal with the heat soak issues, otherwise it's going to pull timing and power, especially if you live out here with me and the sun tries to murder you for a quarter of the year. But the car is worth owning, and there are plenty of the fix the annoying issue parts out there. The best years of these things to buy are the 2006 to 2009 cars. The later ones, a little bit more sorted, and again, service records are going to matter more than the year does. But clean low mileage examples are climbing in price, so the sub 20K buy is a little bit higher mileage driver, but that's what we do here, right? We do drivers. Keeping a car in a box and protecting it from the world is actually for nerds. Your first money spent should be sorting the supercharger coupler and isolator and dealing with the cooling system. Then once that's started, obviously we lower it. You always add more low first. It's obviously the most important mod that you can do to a car. Then throw a smaller pulley and a tune on this unit, and when you do, make sure you back it up with a solid isolator, an upgraded heat exchanger, and an intercooler pump so you can actually use that power. Later on, once your wallet recovers from all that, add an intake and exhaust for some swagger, and if you're going to go any bigger than that on power, go to bigger injectors. Again, this is just a big bruiser sedan with loads of fun to be had just by uncorking this thing. I know. There are a bunch of you out there right now that are saying, Jason, you always skip the Lexus. What about the Lexus, Jason? What about the Lexus, Jason? Fine. Okay. You don't have to scream at me. Let's do the Lexus. Hang on to your hats for a second. It's 1UZ time. If you like this type of stuff, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We do builds around here. We race cars around here. We talk about cars around here. But you got to subscribe to get notified, and then hit the little bell thing so it notifies you. I mean, you want to be notified when I'm on, right? I'm a really entertaining guy. You want to know, don't you? Don't you? You do, right? Yeah. Look, I'm not bragging, but that number 2 is basically straight out of Adobe. Number 2 on the list is the Lexus GS400. Okay, so do you guys need a quick breather about the maintenance hogs we just talked about? Me too, actually. So let's talk about a Japanese executive sedan with a vendetta. Now this car right here has the 1UZ FE, which in my opinion is probably one of the coolest Japanese V8s out there. They sound absolutely incredible when you open them up, but without an exhaust and intake, you pretty much drive this thing right through a library and no one's even going to notice you're there. This thing is about as beige as it gets in stock form. But they are beautiful cars, and this engine was overbuilt on purpose. This car is the one you buy if you don't even play the lottery, but you want an older V8 sedan with some actual real class. The 1998 to 2000 cars are the best ones to buy, and that's the 1UZ with the VVT-i. And 2000 is the last year for them. It's the same car across the entire run of them, so buy the car based off the service records and the condition. Pro tip for you, find a little old person that's selling theirs because they probably own one. What's the nightmare on this thing? Well, it's a short list, but it's actually a real one. The one you see in these years are an interference engine, so a snap timing belt bends valves. Treat that 90,000 mile or 7-year belt change as actual mandatory deal. So this one's a little bit less of a problem, but the starter also sits under the intake manifold. So when it dies around 100K, it's a labor bill. That's if you're not handy with a wrench. And the heater control valve pretty much cracks when it's apart. So budget that in. Fluid-filled engine mounts, they also collapse, just like any of these things from that age. And those things aren't cheap to replace. So what's your first money spent? Well, if the belt history is unknown, do a full belt, water pump, tensioner, and idler kit right away before your valves start making out with your pistons. Then lower that thing. Definitely open it up so it sounds nice if you're into making some of those noises. If you want to boost it down the line, they can handle that too. Right now you're wondering to yourself, Jason, if this is so good, what could be number one on the list? And that's a good question. You're asking a lot of very good questions, but I'm gonna go get a schnitzel and some sauerkraut, and then I'll tell you. See you there. You like the number one right there? Yeah, I drew it bigger because it's the winner. It's more important than the rest of them. Duh. Number one on the list, BMW E34 540 Sport 6-speed. Yes, that's a mouthful. This car is a straight up unicorn, and I passed on two of them. One was an actual M Sport, and I passed on it for an E36 M3. Go ahead and write it down. Hold it against me later, because I'm probably going to have that on my coulda, woulda, shoulda list. Or hell, want to know what? I already regret it. I wanted the 540, and somehow I ended up on an M3. Anyways, I'm going to start rambling and probably crying, and I don't have any tissues up here, so let's move on. There were around 3,200 of these cars built, and only 1,577 of them came to the US. The M Sport, only 139 of them were 6-speeds. This car is special, and it's the dual personality trait that we've been talking about the whole video in its purest form. It comes with the M60 V8, which sounds amazing, and it's the best looking body that ever got put out by BMW. Sure, that's my opinion, but I'm right, so, take that, Mike Burrows. It's a quiet executive sedan 1 minute, and then a backroads weapon the next. Of the 5 cars that we're talking about today, this one is the one that's the keeper. The other 4 of these cars, they're actually the runner-up. And I'm not talking about the automatic on this one. That might be the right transmission for the Audi or the bigger E38 7 Series, but this one only counts if it's got the 6-speed. Oh, you disagree with me on that? That's fine. Go ahead and tell me why you're wrong down in the comments. The best years to buy for these cars are the 94 and 95, with 95 being the last year and the year that actually includes the M Sport model. The number that matters isn't the model year though, it's the block serial number. Later M60 blocks moved from Nicocell to Alucell, and many worn out Nicocell cars were actually given Alucell short blocks under BMW's extended warranty program. So check the serial number stamped below the number 3 cylinder. The good news is, if it's a Nicocell car and it's actually lasted this long, today's low sulfur fuels won't hurt the block like the fuel did back in the 90s. Just make sure you check the bores in the bore scope if it's got the older block in it. What are the nightmares with the car? Well, the Nicocell bore is the headline there. High sulfur fuel in the US corroded the early coatings and killed compression on these things. It's going to show up in the car as a rough idle and hard cold starts. An Alucell block or a proven survivor with strong compression is actually the goal here. After that, it's surprise, the whole cooling system and tired suspension bushings. What? A BMW with cooling system issues and bushing problems? Color me shocked. The first money spent should actually be a compression test, leak down test, and someone who knows what they're looking at when they bore scope it. Do this before you buy it, and then just plan a full cooling system refresh, because that thing is gonna pop on you, especially if they used OEM parts. So once you've gotten through the maintenance, get a set of coilovers on that thing. Throw a nice set of wheels on it, an LSD, and maybe upgrade the brakes on it if you want some bling. Big power out of the M60 kind of misses the point of the car, but if you want the power, you can get it. There's options out there. My bet though, you'll be happy with the basics. Just open that thing up so it sings, get a tune for it, and just enjoy it. By the way, tunes have to come from these small mom and pop type shops. I don't think any of the big guys support them anymore. So none of these 5 cars look like what they actually are. These things are all low-key bruisers that have a dual personality for when you need to be a good dad and a responsible adult, but you also want to slide sideways to the corners when no one's looking. Every one of these things is real V8 power and noises with Toyota Corolla money. The only real wild card here is that shifty Audi. So head down to the comments. Tell me what cars you'd put on the list, or tell me how sick this hat looks, because it's pretty sick. Got any ideas for cars you think we should cover? Tell me about that below too. Or if you think I look fat in this t-shirt, we'll see you down there. And as always, thanks for coming. Hope you enjoyed your time here, and I'll see you next time on Off Camera.